Hello, everybody, and welcome to part 15 of the one and only Blender 2.80 Absolute Beginners course. And this is the part of the course which I'm very excited about because we're gonna create this cool little scene you can see here utilizing everything we already learned in the past 14 videos. So I hope you're really gonna love it. I'm really excited about showing you step-by-step process of creating something simple as that, but at the same time very nice looking, I think. And you're not gonna be a Blender beginner anymore after finishing this video. So let's just jump into it because I don't want this to be too long, but at the same time, I really want to show you a step-by-step process of creating everything. Let's get started traditionally by deleting the unnecessary objects and moving to our humble beloved cube. I will jump into the edit mode and extrude the upper face just once, something like that. And now I'm gonna scale it within the within the X axis. Yeah, let's now utilize a tool we learned in the previous part, which is the merge. So I'm gonna switch to the orthographic view and press Alt M and merge at center. I'm gonna repeat it here as well. And boom, this way we have the basic shape for our house. Let's model it just a bit more so it looks similar to the picture we had. Maybe let's scale it a bit like this and add some length to it. Yep, I would say that's pretty good starting point. Maybe we can move these edges up a little bit. And now I'm gonna show you how to create a roof. Creating a roof is easier than it might look like. So I'm just selecting those top faces, duplicating them and pressing escape key. And now I press P to separate them from the current object. So now when I'm in object mode, you can see we can select those two pieces of geometry separately. I will now enter the edit mode for the roof parts, and from the side view I'm gonna extrude it upwards by pressing the E key a little bit. Now I select everything by pressing A and scale within the Y axis just like that. So yeah, now we can see there's already something happening. Maybe the roof is a little bit too thick, so I will just move it down a bit. And yeah, we just need to expand it a little bit to the sides. So I will just select those two faces here and scale them within the X axis and move them a bit down. And maybe that's enough. Let's see. Yeah, I think I will leave it like that. Maybe I will just move it a bit up and scale. Yeah, so you can see modeling, 3D modeling, the name is actually what it means. We are kind of forming the shapes of our objects, and it always reminds me of sculpting with clay or with some other stuff you can play around with and model it to get a shape that you require, that you want. So yeah, this is the very base. Let's now move to creating the doors, and we're gonna start by centering our 3D cursor around this edge. So let's say cursor to selected. We're gonna have it here. Now I'm gonna add a cube, which is gonna be created at the 3D cursor location. I'm scaling it down a lot and shrinking. Maybe let's add more thickness. Let's do something like this. So with this basic shape like that, I'm gonna enter the edit mode, select the top face, or maybe I will just duplicate it first. Yeah, let's do it like that. Now I'm gonna select those two faces and move them upwards. And now I'm gonna press E key, so we have something like this. I'm gonna switch on the X-ray mode to have an easier selection of the faces, and I'm gonna repeat the steps from, I think, two past videos, so I'm gonna press F right now. After selecting those edges, we can fill the spaces, and by pressing, maybe that was too fast, by having this one edge selected, I just press F key, so Blender fills those areas automatically for me. Right now we have a door frame, I would say. So let's now create the door itself. I'm gonna add another cube within the 3D cursor, and I'm just planning to scale it like that. Move it up a little bit. Scaling within the Z-axis, and now scaling within the X. Cool, so I guess we have a door already. Let's now move to adding the windows. So the process is going to be very similar to what we just did. I'm going to copy the door frame with Shift D, Shift Z shortcut. If you remember the older videos, Shift D is duplicating and Shift Z allows me to move the object within the just the Y and X dimensions, so it doesn't go up and I don't lose it somewhere within my scene. Yeah, so I'm gonna enter the edit mode right now, select the vertices, switch to the X-ray mode, and move those faces up. I'm gonna extrude them right now, and I'm gonna repeat the process from the door frame. So selecting these two faces, deleting them, selecting the edges, now selecting them again, pressing F, selecting this edge here and pressing F 3 times again. So we have a window frame right now. Let's just maybe model it a little bit more. I'm gonna go to the X-ray again, select everything here, and just drag and drop, or drag and hold, whatever. Yeah, you know what I mean. So with this window frame here, the problem is my pivot point is somewhere down here. I'm gonna reset it by going to set origin and origin to geometry. Now I'm gonna focus my 3D cursor here in this area at the pivot point of the window frame, and I'm gonna add one more cube. So basically that's the same step-by-step process as we did with the doors. I'm just gonna scale it up, shrink it within the X axis a little bit, and move it like that. This is gonna be our glass. So we have a one window. How we can duplicate it? And as a perfect student, you already know how to do this. We just select it, press Shift D, and then press the Y key, so the window moves along the Y axis. Now we're gonna select those two windows. We enter the wireframe mode just to see if this is the only selection we have, just to double check. Now I press Shift D and X, so we move the windows to the next, to this opposite side of the house. I'm gonna go to the solid view, press R, now I press Z, and now I type 180 on my keyboard and I confirm by enter. So we just did 180-degree rotation of the windows. I'm gonna move them here, and boom, this is our house. This is a base model, and yeah, what is it missing? I think it misses the chimney, so that's gonna be our next target. Again, we gonna start just by the humble cube. By the way, there's probably a new shortcut right now I'm gonna use, so it's a Shift C, which moves the 3D cursor to the scene center, but it also, the shortcut zooms the camera to the entire scene content we have. This is pretty useful sometimes when you get lost within the 3D viewport. You can use it, so it's Shift C. So as you can see, I just created a new cube. I'm scaling it down, moving it somewhere towards this area, and scale it to the within the Z-axis like this. I'm pretty okay. Maybe let's add some thickness. Yeah. And now we're gonna enter the edit mode. select this face up here, and I'm gonna extrude it, but I'm gonna cancel the operation. So after I pressed E key, I'm gonna now press escape. And what is happening right now, the face is now still, the newly created extruded face is still visible. It's still present within the model. So when I press G key, you can see I'm actually moving it around. When I press S, we're gonna have this glitch. And that's because the newly extruded face and the original face I used for the operation, they both share the same height right now. So that's why this glitching appears. And to fix that, we just need to move it very, very slightly slightly above the original face. So yeah, that fixed the problem. And now I'm gonna extrude it again. So we have a chimney already. Now I'm gonna extrude it again and cancel again. So after doing this, again, if I just grab the object, it moves around. But when I press S and move inward to the surface, we're gonna create this nice boundary. And I'm gonna extrude downwards right now. And this way, we've just created a chimney to our house. Yeah, that's pretty good. I would say to have this cartoonish look, we would now need to deform our little creation. So let's start doing this now. A good starting point would be the roof, in my opinion. So let's select those two vertices here and move them down like this, and maybe a little bit forward even. And we can even rotate them, but not too much, so just a little bit rotation. Something like this. And let's move this part of the roof like that. Also rotate it a little bit. We can move those corner points a bit like this, so there is a little bit of so we just keep the line here a bit more straight between all the points. Maybe this one needs more fixing. Yeah. And same here, I'm gonna select those 2 points, move them a little bit like this, align this one and that one. So the obvious problem you can see right now is the part of the wall leaking through the roof. And to fix that, we just gonna enter the edit mode for our main house object and move this point just a bit down. So something like that. Let's maybe move the roof a bit up. Yeah, maybe that's a bit too low. Maybe just a bit. Cool. So now we still need to fix the roof. So we select those 2 points and move them upwards. And from the side view, you can see that we are not doing this super precisely, but because this is a cartoonish type of rendering, we will just stick to it and do it very, very spontaneously. So I'm moving those points a little bit so they match the roof shape. I'm gonna also move the points here just a little bit, like that. And I'm gonna use the box selection to move those. Because when we are in the wireframe mode, when you just click once, remember that you're only selecting one of the points. So to be sure you actually selected everything, have a box selection here too available. And then left click, you need it selected, left click and select. You can also use the B key, which is box, I think B stands for box. That was a very common shortcut in the previous Blender version. So B key also allows us, enables the box selection tool without clicking it here. Okay, one more thing, I will just manipulate the corners of the house a little bit, and then we will adjust the doors. So I select this point here, move it a little bit like that, not too much, so it's not like super deformed, and those few points here. Okay, so the base is now looking much better in terms of cartoonish look. Let's move to fine-tuning the doors. With the doors, I'm gonna basically repeat the same steps as with the main geometry of the house. So I will just start off by rotating the frame itself and moving it to the wall so it matches better. Same with the door, the actual doors. So I press R and then X, and just let's push them a little bit inside. Cool. Now I'm gonna enter the edit mode, select some points of the doors. Let's start here at the bottom, move it like that. Now I'm gonna select those points, move them like that. I will probably rotate them a little bit so again the shape matches the actual curvature, or I don't know if it's a curvature, but you know what I mean. I want to have those lines more aligned, so then in the outside the edit mode I don't have this uninteresting corner here. So this is something I also need to fix. I will just select those 2 points and move them freely like that. Also these points here, just a little bit like that. So I'm doing this very slow transformation by holding the shift key. So I select, press G for grabbing, and then shift for slowing down and making it more precise. Okay, let's fine-tune the door itself, and again same process using the B shortcut. I'm doing the box selection, then G for grabbing and moving the selection around, and that's basically it, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with the doors. We could still move them a bit forward maybe. Perhaps we need to scale them within the y-axis a bit more. And now it's done, in my opinion. So it's gonna be exactly the same with the windows, but we won't be getting into the edit mode. So let's just select them quickly, rotate a little bit. Yeah, first we need to align them to the wall curvature. So we can go to the wireframe, press B to select, and if we select the house by mistake, we can just press B, and then by holding middle mouse button we deselect. So with 2 windows selected, I just rotate both of them and move them to the side. I repeat exactly the same thing with these 2 windows. So again, I selected the house by mistake, B, holding middle mouse button, creating a box, and then releasing it to deselect. So R, and yeah, yes. Okay, let's select this window, rotate it a little bit like that. Let's maybe move this window a little bit and also rotate it like this and rotate it a little bit more. Okay, so oh yeah, the chimney, yeah, we can't forget about it. So let's just align our camera to this view, press R. We can now move a camera here, press R again, move it a little bit like that. Yeah, and the chimney is already rotated, maybe a bit too much. We don't want to overdo the cartoonish look, so let's just keep it like this. Okay, so the base for our scene, the main actor, the house, is already finished. Let's now move to creating the platform, the poles, and the boat. So platform and the posts is very straightforward work. We just create a cube, scale it within the z-axis, and then I press S and Shift Z, so it scales only within those 2 red and green directions. I think it's okay. We can make it a bit thinner by scaling within the z-axis and just matching it with the house a little bit. Yeah, cool. Now I'm gonna create another cube. Press G, Shift Z, move it to the corner, scale it down, and now press SZ to scale it upwards. So now I can So you can see basically what we are doing all the time, literally all the time, is scaling, rotating, and moving things around, and pressing Shift D to duplicate, to save the work we already did. So that's why we spend so much time repeating those and revising those very simple commands in the previous videos. I'm just gonna rotate the poles a little bit like this, so it's not super straight. We can also move some of them around. So R left. Yeah, let's leave it like this. We can move that one a bit up. Rotate like this. And yeah, we have the platform. I'm gonna switch to the side view right now. Press A to select everything and move it a little bit up. And I'm gonna Shift A and create a plane. So I'm gonna press S right now with the plane selected, and I'm gonna type 10 and press enter. So the size increased 10 times. I'm gonna do it again, but maybe 5 times. And we have this huge surface of water. I'm gonna move it a bit upwards like this, and I'm gonna still copy and paste a couple of poles. So Shift D and X, Shift D and X. Let's rotate them, move them around. And before we create a boat, I think it would be interesting to already apply some colors, some lights to the scene and see how it looks, because right now it's still just a gray and not that interesting. To add colors, you might already remember it from the video 10, I think. We need to switch to the rendered view, and we can also do that by pressing Z, and instead of choosing wireframe or solid, we select the rendered view here. So the default look is very uninteresting and gray. I'm gonna press Shift A keys and select a light and a sun, and you can see there is a new object created. It's a sun lamp, and I'm gonna rotate it a little bit so we have this nice looking shadows. Now I'm gonna press R and Z, so we change the direction of the shadow. And as you can see, this is a good example where we could use the normal pivot point or transformation orientation. Sorry, that's the correct name, because then it allows us to change the angle of the sun. Otherwise, it's gonna be, if we just use the global transformation orientation, that makes things more unintuitive in my opinion. So we would have to move the sun within the strict X direction, strict Y direction, and so on. And I think selecting the normal makes it more intuitive. So yeah, let's add some very basic light. And now we're gonna do a little bit more advanced stuff. This icon here, third from the bottom, when you click it, you have some settings for the light, similar as we have for the materials, but yeah, more limited. So by clicking this bar here, we can change the sun color. So I left click and hold my mouse and move around this color wheel here. So let's select something like this, and those 3 buttons here also allow us to pick the colors in a bit different ways. I prefer using the HSV slider, HSV tool, because it allows me to change the hues. You can see the point changing here, and my favorite hue for the sun is 0.12. Now if I play with the saturation bar, you can see the point moving towards the center of the wheel, and I would say the saturation for the sun would be maybe 0.3, and the volume moves the point here on the right. So let's keep the maximum volume for the sun, and yeah, I think we have very nice illumination. an advanced tip, but let's just do it for the sake of this nice picture we plan to create. Here under the light settings, you also have a shadow option. So when you click it, you should enable the contact shadows. That will make the image a little bit more interesting, so you can see those shadows that should be normally visible in those areas. They are only enabled after selecting this option here. So let's just keep it selected and move on to adding the materials. I would suggest starting with the water because that's the biggest object in our scene. So I select it and check if the selection is active in the wireframe view. Now move to rendered. And as you remember, I hope, the material option is here, the fourth from the bottom. We just click new here. We don't bother about all those sliders we see. We only focus on this one here. So let's select a watercolor, and I would guess something like this works fine for now, at least. Now I would move to colorizing the house itself. So let's start with the roof, and again we have some basic material I can see created for that. Let's just delete it, or maybe let's just leave it, right? Let's just change the color straight away. So I will move here, and you can see the house changes together with the roof. Now that's a tricky situation. I didn't plan it for this tutorial, but yeah, let's keep on going. I'm gonna get to it in a second. So to add a color to our platform, we could create a new material, or we can click the one already added to the scene. Let's pick up the material the house is also bearing, and I want the house itself to be white. So I'm just gonna delete it. I'm just gonna delete the material by clicking this X button here. And what you can see here is the material slot being empty, but I think we're gonna get to those. I'm gonna get into details of materials later during the next part, so let's just skip it for now. And yeah, let's colorize the door frame. So I'm gonna add a new material and pick up the color like this, for example. I'm also gonna assign this material to the door itself, not just the frame. And let's also do it with the window frames like this. And I would say it looks also cool on the poles. Unfortunately, you just can't select multiple objects and assign a material to them. Again, the reason for that, it's a little bit more complex. I will get into that when talking about the materials themselves. Let's just focus on on applying those very simple steps in this tutorial. So I would guess maybe adding some color to the windows, and that would be enough for the house, in my opinion. Let's just add this very similar yellowy color. And that's basically it. I think it looks really nice. Let's now maybe add a camera and try to create a nice picture before we finalize everything with the boat. Camera is just another type of objects you can choose from while being in the object mode from the list, from the add list, which is activated by pressing Shift A. And yeah, let's just select a camera. So you can see, let's switch to the solid view and X-ray view. The camera is created at the 3D cursor. So let's just move it around. And again, this is a similar case as with the sun. If I have a normal transformation orientation, you can see I can move the camera towards the direction it's pointing at. When I just select when we have a default global transformation orientation, we can just move it left, right, and up. So it's a little bit more limiting. I'm not saying it's wrong because it also has an advantage at some situations, but I would guess using the normal transformation here is better. So let's click this button here and we can already see the camera, what the camera is seeing. So as I mentioned in the previous video, I think video 10, when we are in the object mode, let's switch to wireframe, you can see the camera has this yellow outline, but when I press G right now, nothing happens. So I need to click here around the edge of the camera to have it selected. And I know that it's selected when I have the camera settings here. So if I have a sun selected, the third icon from the bottom is a sun settings. And when I have a camera, then the third icon is this little, you see, camera indicator. So now when I have it selected, I can also see it in the object mode. Now when I have it selected, I can move it around and try to aim at the building. And in my opinion, what's really handy when working with a camera is having an additional 3D viewport visible. So let's open it here instead of the layer editor. Let's switch to the wireframe and normal orthographic view here. So if I have my camera selected and I just press G key within this viewport, you can see I'm moving it as any other object. But if I do it in here, since I have it selected here, the transformation after pressing the G key is a little bit different. So I would suggest playing around with it yourself and seeing the difference. I will just move the camera a bit closer, or yeah, maybe, yeah, the location is good. But now I would like to rotate it. So the way we can do this, when I just press the R key, you can see the pivot point is the camera origin here. What if we rotate around the 3D cursor? So let's just click here and pivot point, let's select 3D cursor. So now when I press R, you can see we get this nice turntable kind of look. And if we press R here, you can see it works a bit differently. If I press R second time, we have this free rotation around the 3D cursor. But if I press R and Z, we basically get the same as in the viewport on the right. So let's move our camera like this and let's have it selected here. But in this view, let's just press T key and switch to the rotation. So now I'm gonna rotate the camera like that. I'm just trying not to have any of this gray background in my camera view. So let's rotate it like this. I will press G here and maybe move it a bit further. And now I'm gonna rotate it again. So we have this Control Z, that's not what I want. So we have this nice perspective like that maybe. I press G again and I press R here. Yeah, I would say this looks pretty nice. I'm moving the camera a little bit to the right so we have everything framed nicely. So the house here, the shadows here. I would say I would avoid having a camera perspective like this where the shadows go out the camera frame. So let's just make it nice like this, and we still have room for the boat. So let's now finish this great image by creating a boat. I'm gonna start by going back to the solid view and switching to the side view here. Yeah, maybe let's go to wireframe. And I'm gonna create a plane object. So the plane is created here. I can say it on top. I will just move it a bit to the side and change the pivot point to an active element. and I'm gonna rotate it by 90 degrees. So back to the side view, I will enter the edit mode, select the edge here, and I'm gonna delete just the edge. If I select, yeah, yeah, it works. I was planning to use this option, but the edge itself also works. So I'm gonna select those two vertices here, and I'm gonna switch to the global transformation orientation, because you can see now when we select it, the gizmo rotates kind of randomly, and that's a bit distracting. So I will just select the global, and instead of active element, I will select median point. Yeah, so I will now move those 2 points down and scale them within the z-axis, and maybe you can see it already. We have a section of the boat. So with those points selected, I will press E key now and limit it to the Y direction. Now I will, with having those points selected, I will just press F key. So we already have a back of the boat. Let's just move those points a little bit like this and shape it. Now I'm gonna select those points here, move them a bit forward and extrude again within the y-axis. Now I'm gonna scale them within the x-axis like this, and I'm gonna press F again. So just by selecting those 2 points down here and moving them like that, we already have a base shape for the boat. It still needs some thickness, so I will add it by selecting the points on top, B and select, and I'm gonna press F key. So we have this nice face on top of everything. Now I'm gonna press extrude key, but instead of going up, I'm gonna cancel by pressing escape, and I'm gonna scale it to the inside of the boat. From the top view, you can see the thickness of those walls is not uniform, because here it's a bit thicker when we scale, but I'm gonna adjust it manually. So let's say we want to have this thickness. Now I'm gonna select those 2 points and move this edge a little bit down, and same with the points here. I will move it a bit up, maybe scale within the X. So now when I select everything, I already have this nice boundary on top. I will select this face and extrude it downwards. So you see, if I do it too much, I'm getting through the external walls of the boat, which is not a good thing. But we can again adjust it manually. So now I'm gonna press S and scale it within the X direction, and now I can press S and Y and tune it manually. So I will maybe select these 2 points again and move them back. And the front of the boat, I think it looks okay. We don't need to move those points anywhere around. Yeah, and ladies and gentlemen, you can see we have a boat. Let's move it down here, scale it. Sorry for that. Scale it a bit down and add the final details to it. And the final detail will be just a bench, so the fisherman or whoever uses this boat will have a place to sit. We will just focus the cursor on the boat right now. So the newly added cube will be here, and I'm just gonna scale it, shape it like this, scale it within the X like that. Just checking if it doesn't go outside the walls of the boat. And yeah, I will now duplicate it by pressing Shift D and Y. So we have 2 benches. And in the wireframe mode, I will just hold Shift key and select everything. And why my gizmo point is here if the boat is here, and the reason for that is I clicked the back the water plane by mistake. So that's why I'm using the wireframe mode for checking my selection that often. Just be sure you have everything selected correctly. I'm gonna press B, and now with the middle mouse button I'm gonna deselect the water plane, and with the boat only selected, now I'm gonna press Ctrl G to join everything into a single mesh, single object. Yeah, so the boat is here. Let's just move it closer to our house. Let's switch to the camera view and press R and Z to rotate it. Maybe let's scale it up a little bit. Now press G and Shift Z to have a nice frame like that. Let's switch to the rendered view, and perhaps we can also add a new material to the boat. So I will just click new and select a new color, maybe something a bit darker. So I will use the value slider here to adjust it. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, we have our picture, our amazing picture, almost done. At this point, I would say it's really interesting to play around with the colors. Once you have the camera set up, once you have the whole frame already adjusted, it's very nice to spend some time playing with different tones and seeing how the image looks after those minor tweaks. Because let's see how it works with the water. The color we have right now is pretty cool, but what happens if we change the hue a little bit, change the saturation like this, change the value like that? You can see the image gets a completely new character to it, and that's really amazing about Blender, that once you understand the basics, then that's the time when your creativity kicks in and you have those very amazing results within just a few within the under an hour of work, because we didn't spend that much time on this video. So I really hope you enjoyed it. I really hope you're gonna practice yourself and try recreating a scene like that, or maybe doing something new completely from scratch yourself. Would be great to see your results posted on the chocofur.com website, where the link is it's in the description. You can also read a little bit more tips and tricks about the edit mode there once you move to the site. So it was really great to show you those things, show you those techniques. I really hope you enjoyed the video. I really hope you learned a lot, and we're gonna move on with the edit mode in the next in the next videos. So see you there and have a great time, and thanks for watching. Bye bye.